Good evening and welcome to Monsters Among Us. I am your guide, Derek Hayes. Welcome back to another eerie installment. I've got quite a collection for you here tonight. It's so good, in fact, that I'm not going to waste any time in getting right to it. So from the state of Arkansas, please welcome Chris to the program.
Hi, Derek. My name is Chris, and I live in Arkansas. My story is a little short and sweet. A couple doppelgangers on the house where we lived for years and where I raised my two kids. My daughter, I think, is the culprit for all this because she still has things happening to her, and she's well into her 20s. The first one happened to my husband. He got home, and he was taking off his boots from work, and he saw me walk by to go into the kitchen and then into the basement. So he wanted to tell me something, and so he went down to the basement to look for me, and I was not there. I was in another part of the house, and he found me. The look on his face was like, I know I saw you go past. The second one happened to my daughter. She was upstairs playing, and she heard me clearly say her name to come down the stairs. And she was like, nope, Mom is not home. That is not her. And she did not go down the stairs. Thank you so much for all you do. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris, for calling in. 2 doppelganger sightings. If you collect one more, you get your 4th for free. And who wouldn't want a free doppelganger experience? I know it's easy for me to joke about. Right, Chris? I'm not the one that had to experience it. Twice. Creepy stuff. And we can't thank you enough for taking time to share it with us here tonight. Now, next up, we work our way to the Midwest. Please welcome Stacy to tonight's program.
Hi, Derek. This is Stacy from northern Wisconsin. I used to live in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and this is a story about something that happened in Bull Valley, Illinois. And it was probably the late 90s. And my friend Monty and I were driving through Bull Valley. We were going to head to the George Stickney Mansion, which is a well-known haunt. It was a house that was built with no corners. There's a big history to it. And we were about a mile away from it, going down Cherry Valley Road. And before we crossed what I think is Crystal Springs Road to continue on Cherry Valley Road, we were talking about how there was a local story that there was a phantom car seen on Cherry Valley Road that would just suddenly appear behind you and then disappear. And so we were kind of laughing at it. And I said something like, maybe we'll see it tonight, you know? And as I'm driving, all of a sudden, these 2 headlights appear right behind me. And this is just a 2-lane road in the middle of the country. There wasn't a lot of traffic. And it was night. And this appeared out of nowhere, where there wasn't like a driveway that we passed, or there's no way this car just suddenly was upon us. And the brights were on, and it was moving back and forth like we were in the way, just driving really erratically. So I started to slow down and move over to the right, thinking, oh my God, this guy's driving like an a-hole, you know? And no sooner did I move over that the lights disappeared and there was no car that passed us. There was no car behind us. And so I've always thought that was really interesting that we started talking about this phenomenon and not sure if we knew something was going to happen and started talking about it, or if because we talked about it, we brought it to us. I don't know, but it made for a really fun night. Nothing happened when we got to the Stickney Mansion, but it was worthwhile going out there that night. Hey, thanks a lot. Love the show. Bye.
Thank you, Stacy. This kind of story can go one of 3 ways. There's the obvious, as Stacy mentioned. Some aggressive driver doing their best to overtake Stacy on the road. Or could it be one of my favorite paranormal subcategories, a phantom car? There 1 minute and gone the next. But in recent episodes, we've been exploring what might be a third option, a UFO. Now, I've shared several calls and even featured one of these stories in my film. It seems to depict exactly what Stacy just detailed. An unidentified flying object that resembles headlights at first, quickly catching up to a car driving down the highway. Then suddenly, the lights fade or fly up out of sight. So take your pick here, Stacy, but my money is on one of those three. But before you go making your pick, just know that that stretch of road is an infamous one. Delaney discovered that there have been a large number of automobile wrecks on that stretch of road. Cherry Valley Road, or Crystal Springs Road, as it's now named. Many of these accidents were fatal. So perhaps that has some bearing on the strange activity that Stacy reported. I've linked to several newspaper articles that we found. There's nothing about ghosts there, but there is plenty of death. So a big thanks to you, Stacy, for sharing all this information with us. Yet another in a long list of haunted roads. Now, folks, let's get this first ad break out of the way. But when I come back, we're going to summon an evil queen.
Yeah, a little bit of a...
You can even build, price, and access.
The real estate market feels more uncertain than Steve.
Now, before we can summon anything, I need to first share this entry from Madeline, over in Pennsylvania.
Hi, Derek and Monsters Among Us listeners. My name is Madeline, and I'm calling from South Central Pennsylvania. My sister and I grew up in a haunted house, and this story is an example of one of those experiences. I was 13 at the time that this happened. I'm now 40. I was in bed reading a book with the light on by myself, and I heard breathing right next to me on my right side. It was a steady breathing. It was distinct. Because I was hearing this disembodied breathing, I tried to figure out where it was coming from. So I looked in the space between the bed and the nightstand to see if there was anything there that could be causing it. I leaned over to the lamp and wondered if it was making a strange noise. The cat was in the room with me, so I went up to the cat and listened intently for her breathing, which was obviously very different from the distinct breathing I was hearing right next to me. So not being able to find a source for it, I decided to leave the room, and I went downstairs to where my mom and sister were watching a movie and told them what had happened. Of course, they came upstairs and investigated with me. Obviously, at that point, nothing was going on and the sound was no longer happening. So I just had to leave it at that and always wondered what that was. Thank you for letting me share my story, and I greatly look forward to listening to more episodes.
Thank you, Madeline. Now, a couple of seasons back, I shared that my step-grandmother has been talking about something breathing on her couch at the senior apartment complex that she lives in. According to her, she could hear the couch inhaling and exhaling. Well, over time, she sort of stopped talking about it, and a lot of us in the family were under the impression that the weird occurrences were behind her. And eventually, she moved to a new apartment in the same complex. But just a month or so back, my dad informed me that not only was the activity still occurring, but it followed her to the new apartment. She'd only stopped talking about the strange activity because she thought people were going to think she was losing her mind. And given that she's in her 80s, I guess that's a valid fear. So that's where we stand today. And I believe she's set to move yet again. And I'll be sure to let you know if it follows her there as well. So thanks for reminding me of that story, Madeline. And thank you again for calling in. Now, folks, if you have a tale to tell, call our hotline at 888-608-NIGHT. That's 888-608-NIGHT. Or you can record your story in the form of a voice memo and email the file to me at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. Remember, true stories only. One story per call. One call per story. Call back if you need more time to finish. And please, call from a quiet place. And don't forget about those hometown legend calls. We only have a few weeks before that window is closed. Now for that evil queen I teased about. Please welcome Gina from Texas.
Hi, Derek. This is Gina from East Texas. Just a quick little short story. I just kind of don't know how to explain what happened to me and a friend. We were at a birthday party. I was probably about 11 or 12 years old. I'm 39 now, so it was a while back. We were at a birthday party with a whole bunch of other girls, and it was kind of late, and our friend's parents had gone to bed. They were on the other side of the house, like a huge one-story house, and all the other bedrooms were on the other side of the house, down this hallway with the one single bathroom in the middle of the hallway that they all shared. And we were dared to go in this hallway bathroom, which was not very big. You know, you had like the double vanity on one wall, the same wall as the toilet, and then on the wall behind you was the tub shower combo and like a linen closet. So they dared us to go in the bathroom and, do the whole Bloody Mary thing in the mirror with the lights off. We had to stand there with a candle and blow it out at the end of saying Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror. So we did that, and we stood there for a few seconds and kind of got freaked out a little bit, thought that we saw the image of a creepy-looking girl starting to kind of fade into view, but we didn't really see it completely. We got very freaked out and started trying to find the light switch. Well, when we started feeling around this not-so-big bathroom, we could find a wall or a countertop or a shower. We couldn't find anything. We kept walking around trying to find a wall, find the light switch. And when I would holler for her, it sounded like she was far away. And this was just a small, run-of-the-mill hallway bathroom. I was trying to find her. We were absolutely losing our minds. The other girls we were with finally decided it's not funny anymore. Trying to get into the bathroom, they couldn't open the door. They had to ram the door open. When they flipped the switch on, I was in the tub shower, and my friend was on top of the toilet. We have absolutely no idea how this happened. I have no memory of stepping into the shower. There's no memory of climbing on top of the toilet. I mean, till this day, I'm still dumbfounded as to what had happened. There was just no explanation for it. It was pretty much all over with after that. We were too freaked out to continue on. We went back to the bedroom, talked about our experience with our other friends. Everybody was just weirded out. Nobody thought we were faking it. We 100% were not. I mean, I absolutely was not. And with how scared she seemed as well, I don't think she was either. I mean, if I was experiencing not being able to find a wall in a tiny bathroom, I would imagine she had to also be experiencing the same thing. So I don't know how to explain that. I didn't think the whole Bloody Mary thing was real. I don't really know the history of it. That's much all I got. Thanks, Derek. Keep it spooky.
Thank you, Gina. Now, I've heard dozens of Bloody Mary stories over the years. I've even participated when I was a young kid. And I can count the number of reports of Mary actually showing up on one single hand. Typically, it's a slamming door or an extinguished candle, Maybe a disembodied voice or an eerie feeling. It's not all that often that a face actually appears in the room. So that makes this experience special. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Bloody Mary is a kid's game. Usually, you bring your friends into the bathroom, you light a candle, turn off the lights, then staring into a darkened mirror, you repeat her name 3 times. The rumor is, sometimes she appears. But who is this bathroom demon? And where exactly does she come from? Well, for that information, we go to one of my favorite sources, Monstrum on PBS.
Only one other female figure in history has been called Bloody Mary, Mary Tudor or Queen Mary I. Born to Catherine of Aragon and King Henry VIII in 1516, Princess Mary was named after her beautiful aunt, an attribute she came to embody. Scorned by her father upon his second marriage, she would eventually be declared his rightful heir in his will and took the throne in 1553. Her reign was fraught with tension. At Mary's command, hundreds of Protestants were burned at the stake as heretics. Despite this violence, it wasn't until her half-sister Queen Elizabeth's rule that she would become known as Bloody Mary, likely as an attempt to diminish or at least tarnish her historical significance. The catchy name gained popularity as the 17th century wore on.
Well, she sure doesn't sound like the kind of person you want to be summoning, if you ask me. Spooky stuff, Gina. And fun stuff as well. Thank you again for taking the time. And for those of you keeping score, Bloody Mary. Now let's cleanse our palate with a little something angelic, shall we? Please welcome Patricia, also from the Lone Star State.
My name is Patricia. I'm calling from Texas. This story took place in about February or March of 1997. I had just given birth to my daughter, and I was living at home with my mom. My daughter was asleep in her crib, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I looked over towards her crib, and I could see 2 angels sitting on, kind of like the headboard, if the cribs had headboards. I looked, was just kind of thinking that's weird. I wasn't scared at all. They were definitely angels. I would say probably about, maybe 18 to 24 inches tall. I could only see the back of them. So I just kind of saw just wings basically. And then I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I didn't think anything of it. I was just so unbothered, which is also weird. And then I woke up the next morning and I told my mom what had happened, and she made me realize how strange that episode was. And then fast forward a few years, my sister was living at home with my mom at this time, and she had just had a baby, and she was using the same crib, and she was in the same room that I was in at the time. And she told me that she had woke up in the middle of the night and she saw 2 angels on the crib as well. I think it was on the other side though, like the long portion. But she said they were just small angels, and she just saw the back of them and didn't really think anything of it. I haven't really heard any angel stories, and I've tried Googling and haven't really gotten any answers. But I know what I saw. They were definitely angels. I do remember my mom telling a friend of hers right after it happened, and the friend said that she thought it was a warning that the angels were going to take the baby to heaven. So I started having the baby sleep closer to me. She's 26 now, so she's doing great. I haven't had anything happen since then, and that's literally the only paranormal / unexplainable event that's ever happened to me. But thank you so much for your podcast and everything you do, and I would love to hear more angel stories if anyone out there has them. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for calling in. Now, I haven't heard many angel stories like this either, Patricia, but I have heard dozens of little people stories. And these little angels sort of sound similar to what those forest folk witnesses reported. Tiny humans, a foot tall or even less, typically wearing clothing, sometimes dressed in woodland materials. But the wings, That's what separates these two experiences. And that detail might be what sets Patricia's apart from all others. You heard her, folks. If you have an angel story like this, please call it in. Patricia and her sister can't be the only ones. So thank you again, Patricia, for sharing this super interesting account.
Period. He's had a hell of a game as well. The greatest of all time.
Now for this next one, we must turn our gaze to the stars. Kat, welcome back to the program.
Hi, Derek. This is Kat, the truck driver. This happened a couple months ago. I was in Holbrook, Arizona on Interstate 40. There's a travel plaza there. It's a 1-9, also called the Hopi Travel Plaza. I was parked on the north side of the parking lot. It's a paved truck stop, but it also has gravel, dirt parking for whoever. It was about 2 a.m. I was on the phone with my friend because I'm afraid of the dark. And out there's nothing but desert, stars, and weird noises from the wind. So I have my dog in the north field of the truck stop. I'm sitting there telling her, go to the bathroom, focus, do your business, talking to my friend on the phone, and I look over towards the roadway, and part of the road began to, I don't know, best way to describe it was self-illuminate. Like, there were no streetlights in that area. I looked and I was just like, I wonder if that's a pair of headlights from a vehicle turning into the truck stop. As I was watching, a vehicle did turn into the truck stop, and the light was completely different. The light that lit up the road was softer, like a pathway had been lit up. There was nothing 3 feet above it in the air. It was just like someone had lit up that stretch of road from the curb line. And then as I'm watching it and I'm telling my friend there's something weird going on, it fades away like someone put a dimmer on it and then it just clicked out. Because of that, my attention was just solely focused on that stretch of road. And because my eyes were over in that field of view, I was also looking at just a stretch of desert. Nothing else on it. I couldn't even see a cell phone tower in that area. As I'm staring at this field, trying to process what it was that I saw, these 4 glowing orbs were in this perfect square pattern. Like, it could have been they were 2 feet away from each other, but they were in perfect 4 points of a square, and they started growing bigger. At this point, conversation with my friend has been forgotten. I'm reeling in my dog on her leash like, okay, it's time to go. So I put my dog back in the truck, and to just process what I was seeing, I go to touch some form of civilization. I go walking into the truck stop. I get myself something to drink, something to snack on, and the guy behind the counter is like, you okay? You look like you saw something weird. And I was just like, is it really that obvious? Written on my face. And he's like, yeah. And I told him what I saw, saying, does anyone else say anything? Like, that they've seen anything creepy or anything at this truck stop? And his face goes from shock at the story I was telling him to, oh, heck yeah, I got a ghost story to tell you too. I'm like, lay it on me. And he told me about, at least once a week, there's a shadow person that just walks through the truck stop like they own the place. And I don't know much about this truck stop. If there's any other truck driver out there who just happened to see what I saw, let me know. Thanks for listening again. Bye.
Thanks, Kat. No, I'm 99% sure that I've been to this truck stop myself. on one of my many cross-country drives. And there's not much out there, just as Kat said, except maybe strange lights and shadow entities. Now, this area has a bloody history, both with Native Americans and later with white settlers. It's also a place peppered with quartz deposits. And it's also along Route 66, and you know what folks say about liminal spaces. And in addition, this location is only 50 miles from where Travis Walton was infamously abducted by aliens back in 1975. Or at least that's how the story goes. Now, this experience seemed enough like a UFO encounter to cross-reference it with old reports. So we did. And while we didn't find a match in that exact location, Holbrook, Arizona, we did find a matching experience that took place in Gallup, New Mexico, which is only about 90 miles away from Holbrook. Here is that report, which was found on Reddit. I'm a semi-truck driver in Albuquerque, and I drive to Holbrook, Arizona and back 6 days a week. For almost every shift over the last 6 months, I've seen 4 strange lights in the sky to the west. They usually start appearing around 8:30 p.m. and last until about 9 p.m. At that time, I'm usually near the Thoreau exit on I-40 or close to Gallup. When the lights start up, one will get really bright and then fade away. Then another will appear and do the same thing until all 4 can be seen. Sometimes they form what looks like a constellation. There's almost always one light that zooms back and forth underneath another or circles it. It's always a crazy show to watch. And if that's not enough to convince you that the American Southwest is a strange place, full of strange activity, I have one more piece of information to share. A UFO video. I tossed a link to it up in tonight's show notes. A video that was taken outside of Holbrook, the very place where Kat had her experience. Now, I'm not sure what's depicted in the video, but I do think it's worth taking a look. So thank you again, Kat, for sharing your experience here with us. Now, speaking of shadow figures, it's time to explore that phenomenon. Please welcome Sherry out of Georgia.
Hi, Derek. This is Sherry from Georgia, and I wanted to call you and tell you my story about my shadow man. It was around 2001, and middle of the night, I was hot, so I got up to turn down the air conditioner and walked to the end of the hall where the living room was to turn the air conditioner down. And as I stood there, I felt a presence, something watching me. Granted, this is 3 o'clock in the morning. So I looked to my left, and standing in front of my fireplace was a black figure. He had a hat on, looked like some kind of coat or cloak. And when I gasped, he charged at me. But before he got to me, he evaporated. Needless to say, I went back to bed, trembling, told my husband. So that was the first incident. Well, then, 15 years later, I am watching TV in the bedroom and see my son come home. He was a teenager working. Go to talking to him, ask him how his day, but he doesn't answer. So I finally get up, and I'm trying to figure out why he's not answering me. I know he hears me, and he's not there. So I walk down the hall and ask the rest of the family where he was at. And everybody's like, well, he's not here. So apparently I had saw a shadow figure walk into his bedroom and then disappear. But love your podcast, and we'll be listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sherry. A shadow man charging at you in your very own house. It just ain't right. And for it to seemingly mimic your son, well, I guess that's even worse. And it's all spooky as hell, Sherry. And I think we love it. So a big thanks for calling in here tonight. Now, folks, don't forget that you can further support the show and look good doing it by picking up some merchandise from our shop at monstersamonguspodcast.com and by clicking on the shop tab. All the designs are created by artists in the paranormal space, printed by a real print shop outside of Dayton, Ohio, and shipped by my mom on the other side of the state. No AI, no big companies, just some folks selling some t-shirts. So again, visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and smash that shop tab. Now next up, we head to the state of Illinois. Please welcome Josie to the program.
Hi, Derek. My name is Josie, and I live in Illinois. Over the course of my life, I've had many run-ins with the unexplained. Today, I will share a story that happened a few years ago. I currently live in a house that's over 100 years old. With a house this old, you would expect to feel some kind of residual energy. I've lived here for about 6 years. Before I moved here, my best friend lived here for 5 years. And I once asked her if she's ever felt anything weird here in this house. And she told me she's never felt anything paranormal while living here, and even wanted to move back if I choose to move out. I have a 4-year-old husky named Titan. Huskies are pack dogs and tend to want to be in the room with their pack majority of the time. One day I was doing laundry in the basement. My basement has 4 stairs that lead down to a landing that overlooks the basement, and another 10 stairs or so that lead down to the basement floor. And you can see the whole basement from the landing. Well, Titan was on the landing that overlooks the basement. I could see him as I was transferring laundry from the wash through the dryer, and I was asking if he was going to come down and keep me company. As I was watching him, I can see he's contemplating coming down the stairs, even making little wooing sounds. Huskies have this little form of talk they do. It's a little wooing, and they'll usually communicate back and forth with you. So he's making these little wooing sounds to answer my questions when something pushes him from behind down the stairs. I saw his butt move forward as if something was pushing him. It all happened so fast that I saw it all clearly. He does not make any sound as he tumbles down the stairs, and as I rush over to check on him, he stands up, shakes himself off, and proceeds to look back up the stairs, as do I. But there's no one there. I ask him, what happened? I give him a quick pat down to see if he hurt himself, but he was fine. He then runs upstairs and refused to come back down for a couple months. Now, almost 3 years later, he would usually only lay down on the landing and watch me do laundry from over the edge. He never allows me to go into the basement alone, but only waits for me on the landing. My husband and I have experienced a few things in this house. My husband swears that I'm haunted. I tell him I'm just a little more open to the unexplained than others. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you, Josie. Now, we hear a lot of stories here on the program about pets and the paranormal. Typically, what is described is essentially the pet seeing something that its human owner cannot. Other times, the pet and humans see the same thing. But to hear about a spirit actually touching a pet, and not only touching, but forcefully pushing, well, that's relatively rare. Poor guy. I hope that this was a one-time occurrence for Titan's sake. I'd hate to think that this is something he's dealt with often. Now, thank you again, Josie, for sharing this rare story. And for the sake of the animals, I hope it stays rare.
Something everyone loves. Great food. Yeah. Check it out now.
Then there is another crash in the back of that.
Now up next, we dip down to Alabama. Please join me in welcoming James to tonight's broadcast.
My name is James. I live in northern Alabama. So I had just moved here about a year ago. I never lived too close to the woods or nothing like that. Now I have my own home pretty close by the woods. I don't have any neighbors. It's kind of just one long road. The nearest neighbor is probably like 5 miles away. So yeah, I don't have any neighbors. And since I don't have any neighbors, there's really no one around me. And that one road, I can hear cars, come down like a mile away. I can hear them playing music. I can hear them pretty much just driving down the street. Well, one day, I want to say it was in February, late at night, maybe around 10 p.m. at night. I was letting my 2 dogs out to go use the restroom. And I'm sitting there in my patio, and I have like a 1/10 of a mile of driveway until it reaches my home. My home's kind of like tucked in the woods, and then this has my house, and then the rest of it all around me is all woods. I don't really have any fence that blocks it off, so it's open for critters and my dogs to go roam around the woods if they like. Anyhow, as I'm chilling here and my dogs are using the restroom, I can hear what sounds like a Tesla coming down the street. And you know, a Tesla has that really weird, distinctive sound, kind of sounds like a spaceship, like a woo, woo, woo kind of sound. So I'm waiting to see this Tesla come down the street, and I don't see it, right? And I'm wondering, like, okay, it's going to show up any minute here. And it ends up getting louder and louder and louder, and it sounds like it's cutting through my field, going straight towards my house. It doesn't sound like it's going through my driveway. It sounds like it's going through the field to my house. And I can hear it getting louder and louder, and I'm sitting here like, what the hell? Like, what the hell's going on? It sounds like it's burning my house pretty soon. And at the corner of my eye, as my eyes are focused towards the road and I'm hearing this noise, I look in my peripherals to my top left by these trees. And if you ever seen the movie Predator versus Alien, or Predator in general, you know they have that invisibility attribute that they use. So I've seen something like invisible like that, but I can still kind of see like the outline of it. It zips from the trees out into the sky, and my ears and my body reacted before my eyes did, because I heard the noise. It sounded like it was coming through the field, right? And it went up through the trees and out to the sky. In my ears, I just immediately turned left, and my eyes trying to pin what the noise is coming from, but I couldn't see anything. There was nothing there. Just besides that, like, I don't know, I don't want to call it a silhouette. It was like an invisible kind of figure or something. It was invisible, but I could still kind of see like the distortion and like the reality or whatever. It just, you know, looked like something was there, but I couldn't see it. Kind of like Harry Potter when he uses his invisibility cloak, you kind of see that silhouette or whatever. Anyhow, I have no idea what it was. That was the only time it ever happened, and I have yet to experience anything else in my farmhouse. Anyways, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, James, for calling in. Now, folks, we're going to do things just a little bit differently here this evening. I'm going to hear from a couple of experts. I'm going to bring a couple of experts in here, rather, to talk about what I think James might be explaining here, the Glimmerman. So, two friends of mine that wrote the book on the subject, Cam Hale and Kyle Filson. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Ease up on the word expert.
We throw that around a lot here in cryptozoology and the paranormal, don't we?
Yeah, it does get tossed around quite a bit. Yeah, I guess we're more the collectors. We had no idea it was gonna turn into this.
Well, I may as well tell people what we're talking about here, I guess, because I kind of buried the lead. You guys wrote a book along with Lon Strickler of Phantoms and Monsters, is that right?
Yes, sir. All about the Glimmerman. So this started, man, I don't remember. How many years ago did we start first getting it? 8 or 9 years ago? Maybe longer, maybe 10?
Yeah, I would say it's probably 11, 10 years ago. We received a story that was just like the one we just listened to, where a person didn't really know what they saw. They were out walking their dog, like in a park. This was like a young college student. She didn't have much money, and so she did things like play disc golf or hike in parks because it was cheap, you know. Her dog noticed something in the trees. She didn't think it was anything unusual. She thought it was looking at squirrels or something. But the more she looked, much like the guest that you just played, she saw what looked like a translucent humanoid in the tree. And it startled her, and she watched it. She saw it move around for a while, and she was trying to describe it. She said, I could tell it was the shape of a person, but it was like see-through. She had never seen the movie The Predator. What she described is like a heat wave off of a hot road, like a mirage, like shimmering, maybe like cellophane. She was trying to describe what it looked like. It was something camouflaging itself. And when she wrote us that story, we were in shock. We didn't know what it was. We never heard anything like that. We were like, wow, what is this? So when we aired that story, we instantly got 4 or 5 other emails from other listeners describing the same thing. And they were like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one. So then we started collecting those stories, and we would retell those on the show. And then the same effect, every time we would air someone's encounter, we would get other people that had had similar encounters. And we began sharing them with Lon Strickler and, like you said, Phantoms and Monsters. And he would get sightings and he would share them with us. And after years of doing it, I was like, no one's really ever written a book about the Glimmerman. Maybe we should combine. How many stories do you think you have? And he's like, well, I probably have 40. And I was like, well, we probably have 40 too. Then we just collected them all, put them in the book, and the book just dropped. So, and it's called Glimmerman, Cloaked Beings That Move Among Us. And
I've got the book right here, right in my hands, and it's excellent. I'm a slow reader. I read the beginning and the end, and the middle is just filled with firsthand encounters. Dozens of them. Are there hundreds of them, maybe? I don't know.
There's almost 100. I think it's in the high 80s, low 90s.
So many, and very diverse from all different parts of the world, different descriptions of what's going on, but they all seem to be featuring the same entity here.
Yeah, that's right. And it's an interesting phenomenon because it doesn't really fit in a category like other cryptids do. Like when you read a Bigfoot sighting, you know what it is. This, no one really knows what it is. In fact, even the name, the Glimmerman, people want to say, well, did you guys come up with that? And the answer is no, not really. What was happening is people would write in with their description of what they saw. Some people called it the invisible man. Some people said it was a spirit or a nature spirit. Other people who have obviously seen the movie would say, no, it was the predator, and people would describe it as shimmering, glimmering, or whatever. And I remember in the early days, every time Lon would send us a story or he would post it on his website, he would call it a predator-like being. And after reading so many of those, we were like, we need to quit calling it that because
it's going to be a better name, right?
This caveat that it's an extraterrestrial, right? It's not what it is, or it's one possibility of what it could be. So we just started calling it the Glimmerman, and it just kind of stuck. And all those stories has a lot of similarities in them. And like you said, they're not just here in America, they're from all over. And what's funny is some of the sightings happened before the movie The Predator. So it wasn't something that they saw on television and then, imagined. This has been going on, and it could be several things. Some people theorize it's just a ghost because, ghosts are kind of transparent.
Sure.
Other people have suggested that it is, in fact, an extraterrestrial able to cloak itself. And then there's other people that think it's something demonic or like a jinn. Other people think it's a guardian angel because there's not really been any attacks by this Glimmerman.
It seems to be an observer, right?
Yes. And much like fae folk, when you hear these stories of gnomes or sprites or fae, they are always observing and they seem almost shocked when you can see them. It's like, you're not supposed to be able to see me. Oftentimes, once the Glimmerman notices you noticing it retreats and disappears very quickly.
It almost feels like some sort of reconnaissance mission or something like that, doesn't it? The way these things operate and the way they look.
Yeah, Kyle and I have discussed that at length off air, is that right there. It almost feels like a scout mission.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that the people they're scouting on is important enough to be scouted on. I'm just saying they witnessed the scout mission itself, is what it feels like. The strange stories to me are the ones that we've received, and they're in the book of where they take place inside of homes. Yeah. Most of them are all outside, or they're witnessed, in the woods or in a park or, at distance. Then we started getting a few where they were actually in people's houses, in their bedroom, in the home. Those are few and far between. You don't get a lot of those, but it does feel like the same thing, whether it's they're checking up on you or whatever it is, but they do report much of the exact same thing like we get from the outdoor sightings. Another odd thing about it to me is we have stories where people have seen this creature go into trees, whatever this thing is, climb trees, start out in a tree. They report the tree moving. You can see physical action in the tree as it moves from like branch to branch or even jumping tree to tree. You can see the limbs, you can see the trees moving, and you can see this shimmering or, near invisible predator-like thing moving in the trees. We also have stories of the exact same thing, but there's no movement in the trees. It's like this thing is standing on a branch that shouldn't be able to hold it. And it jumps to another one, and that branches in the trees on that doesn't move. So they're in the same area, same setting, but sometimes it's like, sometimes they're physically interacting with like our realm, and then other times it's just like they're floating. They still move and interact, but they show no movement or anything showing that it was there. So yeah, it makes me wonder, how many times have we all driven past it? You driving down the road, if that thing's there, you would have no idea.
That's a terrifying thought. I mean,
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a story I had submitted here on the show, years ago, from a family up in, I want to say, Idaho. And they were traveling across the state to go to a theme park or something. And they stopped at a rest area. And inside the rest area, it was the mom and the little girl going to the bathroom, I believe. They saw one of these entities standing there in the corner. And it, obviously freaked them out. So I've had the same thing where people have reported sightings inside their home. A majority of them are outdoors, but sometimes it does happen indoors. And I will point out, one of my favorite things about this entire genre of story is, I don't know if you guys even know this, but you keep bringing up the film The Predator, or Predator, I guess there's no the in it. The guy that designed that look, believe it or not, is the son of J. Allen Hynek of Project Blue Book fame.
Yes. In fact, that's in the book. Years ago when we were researching, after getting so many of these sightings of the Glimmerman, I was just curious one day, and I was like, I wonder who did the cloaking effect on the Predator. I wonder who did the special effects. So when I looked up who did it, it was a guy named Joel Hynek. And I'm like, Hynek? That is a weird name.
Yeah, that's a rather unusual last name.
Yeah, you remember that, right?
Yeah. And when I dug into it, sure enough, J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer, professor, and ufologist, that was his father. So it always makes you wonder, did Dad tell Joel something
that he knew? Yeah.
That he knew, and that's what inspired him.
Snuck into the office late at night and dug through some papers or something, and always remembered that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Hynek's the last name, kind of like Lazar. When you hear that, you're like, wait a minute.
There's that instant association with the paranormal.
I know this name.
And then we want to thank you, Derek, because the story you were just referencing, the one up in Idaho, that's actually in the book, because I don't know if you remember this. Years ago, you sent us about 4 or 5 Glimmerman sightings, and those were included. So you paid a small part in the production of the book.
I'm glad I could spread the word, because this is such a fascinating subject.
And we never intended it for us to be like the area that it gets dropped on, right? It's like, that's what you never expect. We just started talking about it because, as we've made it well known throughout the years, Kyle and I love the movie Predator. Like, it's one of our favorite films growing up, the whole thing, right?
Same.
As it started going, well, then everybody just like, that's the Glimmerman, guys. And it just keeps coming, and it just never ends. And it's good, because it's one of those one-off things in this strange supernatural world that people, when they do experience it, is like, there's nobody talking about this. Like, nobody's had this experience. Till you go online and look. You're like, wait a minute. Okay, other people have seen it. I'm not out of my mind.
Yeah, that's the most common, is when people do hear it. I'm sure somebody listening to this will be like, I thought I was the only one. That's what we keep getting from people. And there's also what separates the Glimmerman sightings from other cryptids, like shadow people or something. People see it one time in their life. It's not something that they see multiple times throughout their life, like they do with shadow beings and stuff. It's like, man, it happened one time. It lasted 10 seconds. I never saw it again. I kind of put it out of my mind. And I never really thought about it again until I heard this show. And then I'm like, holy cow, I remember that.
Which makes it impossible to study when you have one-off things like that. Like, there's no way.
You just wait in a field forever for it to show up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you may not even notice it.
Yeah, it walks right by you.
My mind goes to at night.
Oh, yeah.
If you saw them during the day is one thing. You're never going to see them at night.
Yeah.
It's not
going to underwater, maybe? You'd never see them underwater either.
Goodness. Yeah, that would be... Look, I don't scuba dive or swim in water like that anyway, and that's just another reason for me not to go.
Exactly. I'm the exact same way. On top of the water, and that's my limit. And even then,
I fish it. I don't swim in it.
Exactly.
There's also some strange phenomenon associated with Glimmerman that happens. Oftentimes, the Oz effect, where everything goes quiet before it goes quiet. That's when someone will have an observation. There also have been missing time, where people see the Glimmerman and then they realize that an hour and a half had gone by what only felt like 5 minutes.
Well, that's interesting.
And then it starts getting really wild, Derek. Some of the theories start coming back, that these are time travelers, that this is us, and we have the ability to come back in time, but we're cloaked when we're doing it, and that's just why they're looking around. And then,
I like how he prefaces, now it starts getting really wild. You're like, wait,
just
what?
now.
Have you ever heard of the giant translucent manta ray-shaped things that people see in the sky?
The gargantuan gliders, I think some people call those.
So there's people that are saying that that's what the Glimmerman is flying in. Like, that's his UFO, that's his ship. It's cloaked and he's cloaked.
Well, let's bring this all the way back to James's call, because it sounds like that's exactly what he's describing here in his entry, is it?
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like it's in something traveling. Hey, look, we've all seen Predator. You can watch Predator Badlands. You can watch any of them. Look, their ships go invisible. Maybe it's not too far away from the truth. Maybe it's just another species of alien.
Maybe.
That's just here hanging out.
Very true. Let me ask you about one detail that James did mention in his call, which was the humming sound. He said it sounded like a Tesla backing up, maybe, is what he said. Do you guys have reports of that where strange sounds are heard during these sightings?
We've probably only had one, maybe two, where people have ever reported hearing anything around them, like the possibility of a ship or the possibility of something else there. Most of the time, there's no sound heard with them, other than like I described in the trees.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about location? Is there a hot spot for this sort of activity? Are there certain states where people see this more often than others?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a state that's more prevalent than another, but they are often seen in and around like military bases and stuff, which makes some people theorize that it's military high tech. But I like to argue that, because if the military is going to test out some kind of crazy camouflage and they're in your home and it was to not work anymore, they'd be revealing that they had the technology. It seems like a gamble that they wouldn't be willing to take.
That's a big risk, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. That they could test on their own.
Right. There'd be no reason to test it on civilians.
You could run around it. Yeah, you would never leave the base with it. Another thing that's odd is there's sightings in and around a lot of state parks, and national parks that already have very strange things in and around those areas. So like, the people that have speculated military bases or secret installments in certain mountainous areas, and then there'll be sightings around those as well. So it almost goes, I can't say all the time, I can't even say 50-50. I would say probably 30 or 40% of them have that connotation to them. And the rest literally just seems like people see them accidentally. And then this thing, whatever it is, notices that they're kind of watching them. And then they just kind of hang out and watch back.
And the fact that all this seems to happen around these military installments, again, circles back to that reconnaissance theory.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, they're just probably watching, right? I mean, it makes perfect sense.
But we've not got any reports of, like, violence. You don't get it to where, like, oh, it's throwing stuff at you, or, oh, it's tearing things up, or, oh, I get this feeling of dread. You don't get that. Most people get this, it starts off as like an uneasy feeling of being watched, or like a sense of, not dread rather, or not even panic, but just like an ominous feeling, like settles over you. More of like it's just your instinct telling you that something's not right. People report that before they report hearing no sounds and all this, before they really notice, oh, there's something over there.
Now, is there any communication ever reported by these things? Like, have they ever tried to speak to anybody or made an audible noise that way?
It doesn't seem to be. Yeah, it just seems to be just simply their presence. It's not like they're telepathically talking to people or any of that. It's just like, again, it's just like they are there scouting and observing. Now, why is anybody's guess? The people that they're actually interacting with, the ones in their homes, we don't know why. There doesn't seem to be a key or a link to any of that yet. The threads are still out, but they don't seem to be as ominous as when you hear like the Shadow Man stories, or if you hear any stories of alien greys or any kind of any of that. It doesn't seem to have that same ominous undertone. It definitely doesn't have what the Dogman stories talk about people having. It doesn't have that. It really feels like these are just neutral observers for some reason.
For me, the horror is sort of a slow burn, because if these things are here, spying on us, trying to collect intel, for what reason? What is this leading up to, and when is that going to happen? So that almost makes it scarier. We're waiting for this to lead to something bad, presumably.
Exactly. It always makes me think too, because we've got stories and accounts way prior to 86, so prior to the filming of Predator. So looking at that, I'm like, well, then how long have they been here?
Mm-hmm.
And how long have they gone unnoticed? Because if you went back 100 years, if you went back to 1926, there's a lot fewer people in and around this area anyway. Then you look at that, like, well, how would they even notice it? It's beyond their comprehension at that point.
And how would they describe it either? I mean,
Exactly.
They couldn't compare it to Predator. They couldn't compare it to, exactly, yeah.
That's all it would be. So it kind of makes you go back and reevaluate old ghost stories.
Yeah.
When people are talking about coming across haunted areas in the woods, there's ghosts in this part, or this is an old battlefield or an old burial ground or whatever it is. And these ghosts we see them when we go out there. It makes you kind of reevaluate some of that and be like, was it ghosts, or could it have been the Glimmerman in these areas? It throws a bit of a monkey wrench in the whole timeline to break down when you go back using what's in the book and you kind of get these ideas and look back, which is, again, you get into this. If anybody listening, all of y'all listening to all this and enjoy it, and you want to find answers, you're never going to find answers. It doesn't happen. You find way more questions. You get deeper down the hole. Yeah, it gets crazier. It's kind of like that with everything.
But I tell you what, you guys wrote the book literally on the subject. So if you want to learn more about the Glimmerman, you want to read all these different firsthand accounts, pick up Glimmerman, Cloaked Beings That Move Among Us. Gentlemen, where can you pick the book up?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon.
Okay, yep. Perfect. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for swinging by and telling us a little bit more about this entity. I mean, we talk about it a lot here on the show, but I'm even more in the dark than you guys are. I mean, you've compiled all this information, so you kind of have an idea, whether you want to admit it or not, you kind of have an idea of what these things are about and possibly why they're here. So I want to thank you guys for swinging by. And before you go, quickly, please plug Expanded Perspectives, the book, Lon Strickler, all that stuff.
Yeah, if you want to listen to us, you can find us on any podcatcher that there is. Expanded Perspectives is the name of the show. You can follow our Patreon as well. If you want more content, you can go to Phantoms and Monsters to look up Lon's stuff. His work is legendary. He's got probably the best source for stories of this type. And
of all kinds. He gets piles of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have a sighting of your own you'd like to share with us, we would love to hear from you. You can email the show, expandedperspectives@yahoo.com. You can call the hotline, 888-393-2783. And like I said, you can find the book on Amazon. Thank you, Derek.
Of course. I truly enjoy the book. From what I've read of it, I'll finish this week. And I'm looking forward to digging into these calls late at night, some night. And I keep calling them calls, but the stories you have in the book there, really looking forward to it. So thank you, gentlemen, for swinging by, and a huge thanks for putting this book together. It's going to be a well-used resource for years to come.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
And folks, that's going to do it for this evening. A big thanks to the boys at Expanded Perspectives for swinging by here tonight. Now be sure to check out their brand new book, Glimmerman, Cloaked Beings That Walk Among Us. And while you're at it, check out their podcast, Expanded Perspectives. There's a link to both in the show notes. Now, Monsters Among Us podcast is written and produced by me, Derek Hayes. Copyright Red Crow Media. Additional support is provided by Sarah Carter Hayes, Delaney Bowers, and Connor Ryan. All media used in this production is done so under the protection of fair use. Now give us a like and follow on social media. Join us on YouTube. Give our Discord server a view. And leave us a rate and review wherever that sort of thing is possible. Now don't forget you can catch the show every Saturday evening at 10 o'clock Eastern on the UNX Digital Network. Just visit unxnetwork.com to tune in. And finally, tonight's score was provided by Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, Co.ag Music, and Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Now watch the documentary we made, Shadows in the Desert. Visit BorregoTriangle.com to learn how you can tune in for free. And tune in to Monsters Among Us Jr. New episodes drop every other Wednesday. And finally, join us in the beyond. Just keep listening, and I'll tell you exactly how to get set up. But until then,
Yeah, I mean, however you want to judge that.
Using the eastbound 10 connector to the southbound 1.
Yeah, I'm a lot.
Oh, man.
alright gang, I've slated a fun one in tonight's secret slot. Please welcome Shauna to the show.
Hi, Derek. My name is Shauna. I'm a truck driver, and 2 years ago, in the 1st of April, I was sitting behind a store doing a 5 a.m. delivery, And it was about 4:30 in the morning. I just woke up. I'd opened up my curtains. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I had like a gigantic praying mantis walk in front of my truck. Never heard anything of it. Never seen anything like that ever again. But I just thought it was weird. And then I heard two callers have already seen something like that before. I just want to say that they're not the only ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Now, when she says gigantic, I have to assume she's talking about these 7, 8, or 9 foot tall Mantis-Men that have been reported over the years, a few times on this show even. Now, we scoured records and reports, but we weren't able to find any additional Mantis-Man sightings out of the state of Arkansas. But there are hotspots out there for this entity. Take, for example, the state of New Jersey, specifically the Musconetcong River. That's where back in 2002, this creature was witnessed for the very first time.
Fishing in the Musconetcong River, Brian Richter stopped mid-cast. Something was wrong. The birds stopped singing. Insects stopped buzzing. The forest was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. Then he felt it. Eyes on his back. Someone or something was watching him. Brian turned slowly. At first he saw nothing. Then movement caught his eye. Between the trees stood something impossible. 7 feet tall at least. Long, thin limbs. A triangular head with large black eyes. Brian thought it looked like an insect, but it would be the biggest insect he'd ever seen. And it was staring right at him. Brian froze. Then something strange happened. He felt the creature in his mind, reading his thoughts. Somehow he knew this creature was intelligent. Then the being became transparent and faded away. It didn't move, it just vanished. The forest remained silent. Brian quickly packed his gear. It was time to go. He couldn't see it, but he knew the creature was still there.
Now that clip courtesy of the Y-Files. Now you might have caught a little detail near the end of that account though. The fact that the creature seemed to disappear without actually leaving the area. Now I was curious as to how the witness, Brian Richter, actually described that activity. Because if I didn't know any better, I'd say he's describing attributes that the boys from Expanded Perspectives just assigned to the Glimmerman. So I dug up actual testimony from this witness, just to see how similar the two cloaking techniques actually are. Now the following originally aired on Monsters and Mysteries in America over 10 years ago.
This thing was fading very quickly as it moved up the bank. And all that time, never took its eyes off of me. It was 1, 2, 3, gone. It vanished completely, but I'm sure that it was still there.
I don't know. A lot of similarities there. And if these two entities are one and the same, just uncloaked, so to speak, does that mean that all these Glimmerman entities that people are seeing are actually these Mantis-Man insectoids undercover? They're just running around out there with high-tech camouflage on. Sometimes I think it's better that we don't know. But what an incredible connection, if it is true. And thank you again, Shauna, for ringing in tonight and setting all this up. And thank you, listener, for tuning in here this evening, because it's now that I leave most of you. But it doesn't have to be that way. For literally $5 a month, you can listen to Monsters Among Us Beyond for like 3 straight days without hearing a repeat episode. And you can actually test it all out for free for 7 days using the free trial. Just visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the Patreon button, or hit the subscription button on Apple Podcasts. Either way, it's well worth the money, and it's by far the best way to support the program. So join us over there, won't you? I'll be sure to share calls from folks like our buddy Frank here. He's calling in from the Big Apple.
Hey, Derek, it's Frank from Long Island. I have a story that happened at work. So I work in a courthouse. I am a cop inside the courthouse. We're not bailiffs. New York State has their own police force inside our courthouses. I can't tell you which courthouse I work in, but I will say that there's a lot of emotion that is happening inside, specifically my courthouse. So we, like any other courthouse, are 9 to 5. So once 5 o'clock hits, mostly everyone's outside the building. Pretty much anyone that's left over, there'll be like maybe some extra cases going on, but that's about it. But in this particular night, which happened actually not too long ago from when I'm calling right now, everything was done. But we also have like overtime shifts that the officers, we stay a little bit after closing time to make sure everyone is out. And us officers are the last ones